Accidentally forgot to order a caramel cupcake for my fiancé's coworker who's adamant about wearing white to our wedding. I, early 30s F, am marrying my fiancé this week, early 30s male. He's the most wonderful and amazing person in the universe, but he's also extremely oblivious, socially awkward, probably on the autism spectrum. Boy just cannot pick a hint. He works with a relatively small group of people, and they get along great. They usually go for after-office drinks one Friday a month. Since we moved across the country a couple years ago, we haven't made a lot of new friends, so basically these coworkers are currently my fiancé's closest group of friends. There's one girl in this group, let's call her Daisy, late 30s, who has an evident massive crush on my fiancé. I must say, I don't blame her. My fiancé is in tech and makes good money, wicked smart, tall, hot, nice, funny, interesting, and sweet. She has great taste in men. I've been part of a few of their get-togethers, and this woman acts like a teen girl with him. She giggles and literally twirls her hair. Whenever she laughs she puts her hand on his arm, once even his knee, always tries to sit right next to him, etc. When I pointed it out, he said he hadn't realized, then made a face like gross and said I'll make sure to sit away from her, before anyone does the Reddit thing. No, he's not cheating on me, or into her, or secretly encouraging it. We both work from home, we spend all day together, every day, I have full access to his phone, accounts, am friends with some of the other people who join those monthly after-office drinks, they've never met without several other people joining, etc. My fiancé is also extremely loyal, he doesn't do the typical things of following random women on IG, he's always talking about me, he's not a fuckboy, he doesn't like attention, doesn't like strangers touching him. I actually saw him lean away when she sat next to him, and straight up jerk away when she touched his knee. Additionally, he adores me. I even feel silly having to justify his loyalty, but I know how Reddit is. This man bakes me cookies and brushes my hair when I'm sad. He's a saint. Anyways. Our wedding is very soon. It'll be a small, intimate thing, only 35 people or so. We have a few gluten-intolerant guests, including Daisy, so we're doing cake for everyone, and special gluten-free cupcakes for these guests. We found a very nice boutique bakery that makes super tasty and safe gluten-free cupcakes. Literally the best in the province, one of my gluten-intolerant friends said. One of our guests has proper celiacs, and she needs it to be like one molecule and I end up in the hospital levels of safe, so we're getting all cupcakes for our gluten-free guests. There. This place, however, only has 2 cupcake flavors, chocolate or caramel. We asked each guest which flavor they'd prefer, and they all said chocolate, except for Daisy, who asked for caramel. She doesn't like chocolate, and never eats it. I know she's not allergic/intolerant, I checked and got a list of all her allergies when we confirmed her meal for our joint bachelor/bachelorette party. I was about to place the order, when I received a text. Long story short, I found out that Daisy was planning on wearing white to the wedding, and her +1 friend, another girl, was gonna wear beige. Of course, I went to tell my fiancé, and he said what a fucking asshat, and nipped that in the bud immediately. He straight up told them it was super rude, and that if they showed up wearing white/beige/cream/ivory/bone/super light pastel/very light gray/any other overly complicated way of saying white, they would not be let in. Daisy complained that it was just a white blouse, I'll wear peach pants. And he told her no white at all, of any shade, anywhere. You're being rude to even consider it. The dress code is wear whatever you want except white, you can show up in flip-flops if you want. Why would you want to wear the one thing that's not allowed? She pouted, said her +1 was sad, because she only looks good in light beige, but alright. He considered uninviting her, but I told him not to do it, or it could cause drama with the rest of the friend group, that we'll make sure the guard at the gate won't let her in if she's wearing anything too light, and my friends all volunteered to shower her in red wine if she dares. I'm also overall a very chill person. If she actually showed up wearing white, I'd laugh my ass off, she'd be shaming herself in public. Anyways, I went back to placing the cupcake order, and just asked for all chocolate cupcakes. I guess it just slipped my mind to order a caramel one. Oops. Ah, well. Who doesn't love chocolate, anyway? I guess I just don't see the point in inviting her if even your fiancé doesn't want her there and wants to distance himself from her. She's actively disrespecting y'all's relationship by being a petty child. Actually admitting she was going to wear white and complaining when she's told not to? Update 1. Our wedding day was indeed the best of my life. I'm so excited to be a wife to my wonderful husband and start this new stage together. I know y'all didn't come here to hear me gush about friends and family being brought together to celebrate our love, or the adoration in my groom's eyes when he saw me walking down the aisle, or the funny anecdotes. I'll get to that closer to the end. Y'all are here for drama. Sadly, I have no drama to report. Daisy and her beige-loving +1 dressed perfectly appropriately, in blue, our wedding theme's color, and didn't try anything weird. Daisy actually even made an amazing IG reel that's the only piece of footage that managed to capture my husband's face when he saw me come in, my big, beautiful Viking, suddenly holding back tears and staring right at me, like nothing else in the universe existed. I thought I'd have to only rely on my memory of that face forever, but what do you know? Now I can catch a quick glimpse of it whenever I want, for the rest of my life. So, thank you, Daisy, for having such a crush on my husband that you recorded exactly what I would have recorded myself if I'd been able. You truly have impeccable taste in men. Here's the part that'll disappoint you the most. Regarding the cupcakes, my dad was in charge of bringing stuff to the venue the morning of, and he forgot to tell the staff what was in the bag. The cupcakes sat in the heat outside the fridge for 5 hours. We ended up having to trash them. That's a good use of $30, but luckily for our gluten-intolerant guests, they had passion fruit parfaits available, which were praised to high heavens. So, Daisy got some amazing dessert in the end, though her seat was still pretty terrible, if that makes you feel better. Truth be told, I don't mind. That's what I get for attempting to get revenge. Daisy continued to be her socially unaware self. Maybe it's because I was in good spirits, but I don't mind at all. She got too close front and center for the group pics, literally leaning over my dad, and one of them made comments about how very single she was all night long, and at one point joked to please toss the bouquet her way, same as many other girls attending did. She didn't get to catch it, though. We were having that part of our wedding at a craft brewery, very large place, capacity for some 500 people, and there must have been about 250 in that night. It was, after all, a Thursday. I know, who gets married on a Thursday? People who save tens of thousands in one decision, that's who. We had the back patio reserved for a private party. When we came in, they rang a bell, and all the strangers there were clapping and hollering for us as we walked through. So at the end, when I went to toss the bouquet, we ran back all across the brewery again, telling all single women they were invited to come to the toss. I thought maybe a couple would join up. What do you know, there were no less than 100 people suddenly in for the bouquet toss. A random girl caught it, we took pictures together, it was a lot of fun. Some more details about the wedding. Lunch was great. Everyone got to eat whatever they wanted, since the restaurant let us order à la carte. We got to toast, the cake was refrigerated, thank God, and it tasted great. It's in my freezer right now, I'm getting a slice after typing this, consequences be damned. The favors, surprisingly, were the best part of the wedding. Everyone was so excited about them, they were celestial planispheres. The paper flowers we handmade with my husband for the centerpieces were also very popular, and the guests took them all home. Then that night we got a terrace suite at an amazing hotel with a gorgeous view of the city and a hot tub. It would have been very romantic to spend all night on the terrace, seeing the city lights, making love in the hot tub, except I caught stomach flu a couple days before the wedding, and I'm still sick lol, thankfully nothing terribly urgent. I'll go to the hospital tonight, I'm much better now. Didn't hamper my enjoyment of the day. Absolutely everything was perfect. Also didn't hamper our ability to consummate the marriage with a quickie haha. That's how you know it's real love, when your husband still finds you sexy even after seeing you pop loperamide and run to the toilet all day long. Slept soundly that night. Update 2. I did in fact end up in the ER at 2 a.m. in my bridal lashes, a messy bun that was still technically an updo, and a white hotel robe over my slip because my body decided the appropriate way to celebrate legal matrimony was to evacuate every molecule of liquid I have ever known. Picture my husband, still vaguely smelling like cake and aftershave, big hand at the small of my back, carrying my heels because you're not dying in stilettos, babe, holding a barf bag like a knight with a ceremonial banner. The triage nurse glanced up, took in my smoky eye and his tux jacket and went, "Newlyweds?" And when we nodded, the whole station did a little collective awe like we'd brought a baby penguin. They gave me fluids, I got to watch my Viking husband get all tender and bossy about electrolytes, hot, and then we went back to the hotel and watched the sunrise from the terrace like two very romantic raccoons, wrapped in blankets and sipping ginger tea we pilfered from the minibar. We did not touch the hot tub because neither the CDC nor my ancestors would approve, but we lived, I rallied, and by noon I was upright enough to sign thank you cards and eat a corner of cake like a gremlin popping out from under a bridge. Now for the bit you came for. Daisy did not disappear in a puff of beige smoke after the bouquet toss. She continues to exist in the world as a person who is both deeply cringe and sincerely trying, which, honestly, same, girl. The first Friday after the wedding was their monthly after-office drink, the first since we tied the knot, and the gang insisted I come because apparently I am the team's unofficial tech spouse who knows where the good nachos are. We go to this bar that thinks Edison bulbs are a personality. I'm in jeans, my husband is in that soft blue shirt I like, the one that makes him look like the glow-in-the-dark angel on top of a Scandinavian Christmas tree, and Daisy shows up with a gift bag, of course she does. Inside the gift bag, one very fancy gluten-free caramel cupcake and a clear clamshell from the exact boutique bakery that made the celiac-safe ones. It had the tiny bakery sticker and a ribbon and a little handwritten card that said, "For closure." I actually cackled. She also tucked in a USB drive shaped like a tiny silver heart with rhinestones, for the raw footage. She chirped, and a printed 5x7 of the still frame where my husband is looking at me at the owl-like eye. Invented oxygen. It should have pinged my jealousy meter to the moon, but the note on the back said, "You look like the main character in a movie. Hope you love how he looks at you, D," and I went soft because. Yeah. If she's going to be in love with him, at least she is also in love with what we are. Before Reddit collectively blows a gasket, no, it wasn't some single white female altar she's building in a closet. She handed it to the table, not just to him, and then immediately pivoted to telling a very long story about how her Uber driver had a corgi in the passenger seat. She was sparky and awkward, like always. My husband did a quick, "Thank you, that's thoughtful," and put the bag by my feet, because we have a very clear policy of not unwrapping sentimental stuff in front of an audience. I gave her a side hug and said I appreciated the real angle. She blushed to the roots and said, "I cried twice editing it," which, honestly, same, Daisy. There was karaoke at this bar, which I had not been warned about. At one point some extrovert with a microphone found out we were newlyweds and dragged us up to sing. We can't help falling in love badly but enthusiastically. My husband is one of those infuriating people who is good at everything except staying on the same key as the rest of humanity, which made it perfect. Daisy did not, despite the devil sitting on her shoulder, try to duet with him. She did, man. I feel like a woman with beige friend, who was wearing navy, bless her soul, and halfway through the song they handed me a tambourine, and if you think I didn't go feral on that thing, you don't know me. It was peak camp, and everyone survived. The mildest of inconveniences happened then, because apparently the bar comped us a wedding slice which was, of course, chocolate lava cake. Daisy, who does not like chocolate, took one polite bite, did the smile you do when coffee tastes like ash but your grandma made it, and then diverted the spoon to beige friend like she was redirecting a missile. The waitress came back and said, "We also have caramel flan," and I swear to God, I did not order it, but 3 of them materialized, and none of them made it anywhere near Daisy because the table heard caramel flan and you could see the primeval dessert part of their brains go, kaboom. She ended up with a bowl of strawberries and looked entirely content, which, good for her, but I will admit there was a very tiny petty goblin inside me doing a gentle jig. That weekend we did a mini moon, because the big honeymoon is later this fall when we can both get time off. We drove up to a lakeside cabin 2 hours out, the kind with a screened porch and a dock and a questionable taxidermy squirrel in a tiny vest by the TV. The host left us a welcome basket with local honey and a jar of pickles and a handwritten note that used 8 exclamation points to tell us there were loons on the lake, loonies. Which is a very different vibe if you're Canadian. We brought the rest of the cake and the paper flowers that didn't get claimed, and on our first morning a goose stole one of the flowers off the porch, honked triumphantly, and trotted down to the shore like it had just acquired a fiancé. My husband, barefoot, coffee in hand, loped after it in his bathrobe, and I watched a 6'2" software engineer earnestly bribe a goose with torn up bits of hot dog bun to get my paper peony back. Reader, I married him. We named the goose Gluten. Gluten came back every morning and glared at us like a HOA president with an issue about the height of our lawn. We fed it tiny oats and discussed our 5-year plan like absolute suburban idiots while a prehistoric dinosaur bird judged our choices. It was bliss. While we were up there, Daisy texted me. Not my husband. Me. It came at noon, which, considering her penchant for midnight I forgot to send the spreadsheet. Pings already showed growth. She wrote a very Daisy paragraph that was basically, "Hey, I wanted to say I'm sorry for being weird about the white top, and for being touchy with, husband, sometimes. I am working on my boundaries and I did not want to make your day about me. You looked beautiful. If you ever want to do a pottery class, they have a 2-for-1 on Wednesdays. No, I'm in love with your husband, no dramatic confessional. Just hacked and a Groupon." I told her thank you and that a Wednesday pottery class actually sounded adorable, and that I'd let her know when my stomach wasn't acting like a Victorian heroine. Monday, my husband came home with office gossip like Santa with a sack slung over his shoulder. Apparently the team had decorated his desk with streamers and a paper sign that said Mr., my last name, which made me obnoxiously sentimental because we both hyphenated and seeing it out in the wild made my brain go ping. They did a little cake in the break room, not chocolate, sorry Daisy, it was lemon, and everyone was fine, and someone put the real Daisy made on the conference room screen while they ate. He said Daisy stood by the AV cart like a proud middle school audiovisual tech, and then, this is the big news, she introduced her salsa instructor boyfriend to everyone on FaceTime after class and said, "He's the one I was telling you about." The collective inhale at that table could have refilled my ER4 bag. Beige friend has apparently been trying to shove her towards dating apps for months, and she finally did it, and now there is a man named Jorge who wears linen shirts and says me amor, to whoever is on the other end of the call. I am thrilled for her, genuinely. If she wants to direct her dramatic energy at a man who can spin her under his arm, all the better. Do not worry, she didn't transform into a totally new person overnight. She did accidentally change her Slack profile photo to a cropped shot from the group picture where my husband's shoulder is in frame and his elbow looks like a very handsome boulder, and the office manager sent a gentle maybe a solo pic? Message, and she swapped it to a picture of her cat looking like a loaf. Baby steps. We also had a second, unrelated to her but funny brush with her preferences. My dad hosted a little backyard come eat my leftovers so I stopped housing 24 cans of LaCroix and a vat of hummus thing, and we invited the local friends who didn't get to do a long chat on the day. Daisy came, in a normal navy dress with sensible sandals, carrying what looked like the Ark of the Covenant. It was a Tupperware the size of a nightstand, full of gluten-free caramel shortbread bars she'd made from scratch. They were incredible. I ate 3, consequences be damned. She insisted on leaving half with us for your freezer and half with my dad, who sent me a picture the next morning of himself at the kitchen island with a butter knife and a look on his face like a man who had seen God. As she was leaving, she handed me a small envelope and said, "This is just for you." Inside were 2 tickets to the pottery class, and a sticky note that said, "Weds are better for my brain. No pressure. I went to the class. I know, but listen, I am a magpie for experiences and we have a very comfortable, clear, monolithic wall around the you don't get to be weird with my husband situation, and this was a room full of moms making bowls that looked like pancakes. Daisy showed up in an apron that had cats on it and immediately got clay in her hair. We made a mug that looks like it would hold a potion and a tiny dish that could not hold a single ring unless the ring was for a fairy. She was awkward, and we laughed, and she said, very matter-of-factly, I was a little in love with him and then he got married in front of me, which is a good cure. I'm switching my crush to people who can kiss me back. I said, good plan, and told her that I'm happy she's dating someone who calls her mi amor, and she turned tomato red and said, he spelled my name with 2 Y's by accident and I didn't correct him, what does that mean? And we spent 20 minutes analyzing whether that meant he had a sister named Daisy. It was stupid and wonderful. At the end she hugged me and it felt like a normal friend hug, not a I am absorbing you to get to your husband hug, and I walked home clutching a lopsided mug like it was the Holy Grail. The last bit, because life remains a comedy, remember the heart-shaped USB? We plugged it in to pull the raw footage for our little archive, and it was indeed all the clips from that all moment, plus a folder labeled extras. Inside were exactly 7 seconds of my husband doing a little happy hop on the sidewalk outside the brewery before we walked in. He did not know anyone was filming him. He was holding my bouquet and he did this tiny bounce like a kid at a carnival and mouthed, "That's my wife," and I had to sit down on the floor like someone had unplugged my bones. I sent Daisy a thanks with 7 crying emojis and she replied with I know. I kept rewatching it like it was Planet Earth and David Attenborough was narrating. She was right. I hear the British whisper in my head every time I watch it. Observe the newly mated male in his natural habitat, vibrating like a toaster. So to summarize, kidding, you wanted no summaries, you wanted fresh drama and frosting. There isn't any drama, just a lot of frosting. We're married, my stomach has stopped doing the Charleston, our goose enemy has accepted tribute as part of the social contract, and Daisy appears to be slowly redirecting her romantic energy to a man with hip action and gluten-free cookie appreciation. The mild inconveniences keep finding her like heat-seeking flans, but she's weathering them with grace and a comedy of strawberries. I am happy. My husband is happy. The reel still makes me cry, and the paper peony that got goose napped now has teeth marks on one petal. I'm keeping it forever. Update 3. We met Jorge. He is real, he is delightful, he has clavicles that could slice flan and forearms that say I lift things and also women into spins, and he calls Daisy mi amor like it's a word he invented for her. Beginner salsa night was strung with fairy lights and smelled faintly like citrus cleaner and hope. There were maybe 20 couples, a disco ball that had seen some things, and a teacher who said basic step with the kind of long-suffering cheer that made me want to bring her a muffin. Daisy was there early in dance sneakers and a ponytail, nervous excited in a way I recognized from the mirror on all my first days of anythings. She spotted us, waved, and did a little vibrating wiggle at the edge of her range of motion like an enthusiastic Roomba that found your toe. She passed right by my husband in his earnest I am trying button down and came up to me first, which my primate brain clocked and relaxed about before I could tell it to stop being feral. You look pretty, she said, and then, I told Jorge you're a writer and he prepared a toast, which made my husband make the face of a man bracing for metaphors. Jorge is one of those people who speaks with his whole face. He shook my husband's hand, then mine, then clasped his own hands and said, congratulations on the marriage of the century, which was a little much, but then he kissed Daisy's cheek and you could see her go soft like butter left on the counter. Not gooey, not performative, just comfortable. He introduced my husband to the concept of lead with your heart, not your shoulders, which is a thing every wedding DJ wishes someone had told him in 2007. I am not a natural dancer. I am a natural stand in the kitchen and do 2 steps while eating a cracker person. My husband moves like a tree in a gentle wind. We went out on that floor and counted 1 2 3 5 6 7 like we were assembling IKEA, and it was, against all odds, fun. There is something deeply hilarious about realizing your spouse does not instinctively know where your feet are, and then getting good enough together that he does. He put his huge warm hand between my shoulder blades and concentrated so hard I could have laid a hot mug on the furrow of his brow. I did step directly on his toe once, and he said, very sincerely, thank you, because he was trying to be positive about feedback, and I almost died laughing into his shoulder. The only moment that had potential to twinge did not. Mid-class the instructor called for a snowball. Everyone rotate partners for 30 seconds just to practice following/leading. Daisy looked at me first and went, mind if I take a blue shirt? And waited. I said, you are taking a linen shirt, and pointed her at her own man, and she laughed and said, deal. She danced with Jorge and my husband danced with a grandmother in orthopedic sandals who told him he had very polite hands. Balance restored, universe intact. We went out for drinks after and I learned Jorge's origin story. He is a civil engineer who moonlights as a dance instructor to undo the math in his body, which is the most endearing sentence I've heard all month. He and Daisy met when beige friend dragged her to a Latin night, and Daisy, who counts accidentally locked myself in the bathroom with a mop among her top 10 fun stories, managed to get trapped behind a folding partition, and he fished her out like a gentleman with a pocket knife. He is funny in a way that is not trying to be funny near my husband. He has no interest in the Viking, bless him. He has interest in Daisy, who sat with her knees pointing directly at him, laughing with her whole mouth. The tiny goblin that lives in my sternum put down its spear and took a nap. Speaking of goblins, mine got more civilized. We threw a little birthday dinner for my husband last week, the kind where the house smells like onions and butter from 3 p.m. onward, and at least one cat-shaped oven mitt gets scorched. I wanted to do a dessert that did not cause the dietary gymnastics of our wedding, so I ordered this absurdly fancy gluten-free caramel tart from the same boutique bakery. The universe, being a comedian, decided their oven would rebel that morning in a puff of burnt sugar and vengeance. The baker called me at 10 with "I can do lemon or chocolate," which is the pastry version of gun to your head, pick one, and I was standing in the produce aisle staring at a mountain of pears like a pilgrim, at Plymouth Rock. So I McGeevert. I poached pears in a saucepan with brown sugar and vanilla, made a stovetop caramel that almost seized 3 times and did talk to it, and then, because I am a raccoon with a Pinterest board, I arranged them in a spiral and pretended I meant to all along. Everyone acted appropriately impressed. Daisy brought an enormous jar of caramel sauce she'd made as backup. We are perhaps cursed/blessed by caramel now, and Jorge arrived with a bottle of rum and an apology because he had borrowed her kitchen scales for a shelf project. We ate. My husband opened truly unhinged gifts. Someone got him a t-shirt that says "World's Okayest Programmer," which he put on immediately, and the only bauble was our acquaintance Nate, who turned out to be allergic to pears and confessed this as the platter landed on the table. Daisy very matter-of-factly slid her jar towards me like a baton and whispered, "Bananas?" We had bananas. Reader, I made bananas Foster on a Tuesday. My kitchen still smells like New Orleans. Later in the evening the team from his office swung by after their trivia night. There was, briefly, panic when my husband's very earnest intern tried to make a toast and forgot my name mid-sentence, went pale, and then called me Mrs. Husband's hyphen, which is not my name but is very funny and might be my villain origin story. I rescued him by cheersing to hyphens rescuing women from bureaucratic nonsense, and we moved on. Daisy did not hive toward my husband, which I clocked without trying to, then told my lizard brain to cool it with the surveillance. She offered me her cardigan because I was cold and had stuck both feet under my husband's thigh like a cat burrowing into a couch cushion. I put it on and it smelled like orange blossom and a very clean laundry room. A week later there was an office offsite at the park by the river, the kind with frisbees, frisbee injuries, and the collective delusion that team building exercises are not just adult summer camp. I was invited on the grounds of spouses welcome, and also because I am the reigning champion of not taking cornhole seriously. It was one of those perfect late summer days where your sunscreen is doing overtime and bees are apparently the size of sparrows. The catered picnic tried its best: sandwiches in little paper boxes, salads that amounted to vibes, and a dessert table under a white tent that looked like a mirage from a far-off land. The GF tray was labeled clearly and had little caramel pots with tiny spoons. I swear to God I did not put them there. I was not in charge. I had nothing to do with it. But fate did, because while I was 2 yards away dunking baby carrots into hummus like a woman with a mission, a bee Congress discovered those caramel pots like gold. Daisy, whose vibe has always been "will pet any animal within a 10-foot radius," absolutely did not pet them, but one landed on her wrist and she stood perfectly still like an Olympic statue while the rest of the table descended into shrieks and flapping. Jorge, who had arrived after work to surprise her, stepped forward, spoke to the bee in Spanish. "This is both true and objectively the sexiest thing I've seen accomplished with an insect," and very gently blew it off her skin. It took off. The room, or rather the lawn, exhaled, and Daisy burst into tears for 10 seconds because sometimes your nervous system needs to wring itself out like a towel. He kissed her temple. The caramel pots were relocated to a cooler like contraband. The highlight of the off-site, however, was the relay event that involved puzzle solving because tech brothers cannot throw a beanbag without also wanting to crack a code. One station had a star map and a clue about finding a date in the sky, and our team vaporized it because Daisy, bless her nimble brain, recognized our favor planisphere from the wedding and basically turned into Hermione. She tilted the disc, muttered September, 9 p.m., north-northeast, and then shouted Altair. Like she was naming a horse. My husband looked at her like someone watching a piano play itself. She didn't bask, she just shoved the next clue into his hands and told him to run, then asked me later if that was nerdy in a bad way or a good way, and I told her, with the solemnity of a judge, that it was the hottest kind of nerdy, competent. She grinned so hard she looked like a jack-o'-lantern. We did a day trip back up to the lake for a very practical reason that turned into a little poem. We realized, 3 weeks after checkout, that we had left my husband's favorite hoodie hung on the back of the bedroom door at the cabin. The host put it in a lost and found basket labeled "Forgotten Wolves," which is the cutest crime scene tag I've ever seen. We drove up on a Sunday with a thermos of coffee and 3 of Daisy's caramel shortbreads in foil because I am incapable of leaving the house without a snack now. The lake was the precise shade of a mood ring that says you are calm, and the porch had new spider webs like lace. Gluten was there. And gluten had opinions. Technically gluten had goslings. 3 fuzzy stress balls tottering around like wind-up toys. We named them Pancake, Couscous, and Steve. Gluten saw us, honked, and came up the grass like a politician on a handshake tour, flanked by family-like security detail. My husband knelt down and made that low gentle sound he makes that has successfully charmed stray cats, babies, and one very aloof barista. Gluten accepted a tribute of oat crumbs and then, with the gravitas of a monarch, plucked another paper flower from the wind chime by the door. I didn't mind. There are worse things than being the house humans of a goose with strong opinions about decor. We sat on the dock and ate cold shortbread while an ancient turtle surfaced like a submarine, and we decided that instead of throwing out the chewed up peony, we will make a little shadow box of our wedding oddities, a confetti star, a cork, the petal with teeth marks. I married a man who said, "That will look nice by the bookshelf," and meant it. 2 days after the lake run, Daisy texted, "Double date? Salsa in the park. Beginners welcome. There are food trucks. Rumored empanadas." I read it out loud and my husband, who is all the social energy of a Labrador that's had a nap, said, "I own shoes," which is his way of saying he's in. We went. The park event had a live band, toddlers with glow sticks because someone forgot they aren't just for night, and a perimeter of grandmas who have seen more romance than Netflix. We danced. That is a generous verb. We attempted and sometimes achieved dance. Jorge spun Daisy like a coin. She giggled, but not the powder sugar inhaled giggle she used to deploy. It was richer, like there was a grown-up in the room. My husband tried a crossbody lead and nearly crossbody led me straight into a ficus, then hauled me back with a hand to my waist that was frankly illegal in public, and I looked up at him and thought, again and always, "Oh, it's you, it's you, it's you." Food truck line anecdote, because the universe enjoys running B-plots, the only gluten-free option was, predictably, chocolate mousse. Daisy made a face like a child faced with broccoli. I pulled a Ziploc bag out of my purse like a witch and handed her 2 wrapped caramels I had swiped from my dad's leftover candy stash, because apparently I am now the auntie who carries Werther's Originals. She lit up like I'd handed her a winning lottery ticket. "I have learned," I said, "and I come prepared." She tucked them into her bra because women are marsupials. Beige friend, who has finally told us her actual name is Kara, and I feel like a cad for calling her beige friend this long, arrived midway through with a new haircut that made her look like a Parisian book editor and a boyfriend who looks like he sells surfboards ethically. We are in our romantic era. The park glowed. The band did a bolero. A kid howled because he dropped his snow cone and was given $15 to forget. All very normal. The only actual hiccup of the night was not even ours. An older couple, she in silver sandals, he doing his best in a polo, dipped too enthusiastically and he went down like a tree, which caused the collective sharp inhale you can feel from 30 feet away. He bounced. Truly. He hit grass and popped back up, did a little triumph, and everyone cheered like he had landed a vault. Daisy clapped the loudest. The man bowed to her like she was the queen of something. She curtsied back, dramatically, and I watched her be a human, not a crush, not a problem, not even a plot point, just this big-hearted awkward bird of a person having a nice night in a park. It would be a lie to say all awkwardness evaporated forever into the ether. Yesterday my husband's phone did insist on autocorrecting tie to tie in a Slack DM to Daisy because the keyboard remembered her joking that Jorge spelled her name Daisy that one time, and she replied with a picture of a Home Depot name tag that said Daisy, with 10 smileys, and I could feel everyone on their team wheezing silently at their desks. But nobody died. It was a tiny blip on the radar, a weather balloon mistaken for a UFO. Life is full of those, and most of them are funny if you squint. I brought home the fired pottery from class this week. My mug survived the kiln and looks like a toad. Daisy's cracked in a noble, cinematic split down one side like a geode. We stood in my kitchen holding it like a pet egg we'd failed. "We'll make another one," she said immediately. "Wednesday?" Then she looked at me like a person who learned something in the last month. "Unless you want Wednesdays to be a you and husband thing because of your show, I can do Thursdays." I love us for having invisible calendars in our heads now. I told her Wednesdays were fine. We ate toast and she told me her mother, who lives 2 provinces away and has an indoor forest of plants with names, met Jorge on FaceTime and tried to convince him to adopt a ficus because all men need something. To dote on that isn't a woman. I have never wanted to meet someone's mother more. We plugged the heart-shaped USB in again because I am a glutton for emotional punishment and found one more file I hadn't opened, buried in a folder labeled Soundcheck. It was 3 seconds long. It was my husband at the bar, before the brewery march, standing with his back to the mirror practicing saying my wife under his breath the way you taste a word to see if it fits. He tried it once, smiled at himself like an idiot, and then took the bouquet out of the ice bucket because he was worried the stems were thirsty. I lay down on the rug and pressed my palm to my sternum because my heart had left my body to go run joyous circles around the kitchen island. So, nothing exploded, no beige-clad marauders attempted to storm any altars, the goose union remained strong, and the mild inconveniences continue to orbit Daisy like fruit flies around a pastry while she swats them away with increasing grace. We are making a life in the small ordinary ways that add up, replacing a light bulb, finding the right hook by the door for the keys, learning a turn on 2 and not stepping on each other's feet. It's a good life. I remain embarrassingly gone on my husband. He continues to be a 6'2" toaster set perpetually to warm, popping up with things like I put your slippers in the dryer and do you want to watch the storm from the couch under all the blankets. Daisy texted me a photo this morning of a caramel tart that's set properly, with the note "Third tries the charm," and I sent back a picture of my Toad mug with coffee in it and the caption she holds. We are, all of us, holding. And sometimes, we dance.